Chapter 16. Bonds. Tomás stands still for a few seconds, looking at the iron door, its carvings, and the strange writing. Finally, he decides it's better to just go in. Without any difficulty, he opens the iron door. The room on the other side eerily resembles the place where he always wakes up in Bushakar, a temple of rough stones with a large statue at its center, but this central piece is very different from Kar. Standing imposingly in the middle of the room is a humanoid creature made of black, shiny marble, resembling a lizard woman. The face is almost human, with slanted large eyes, slightly inclined downwards, giving an extremely aggressive impression. The nose is small and delicate, and it has no mouth or lips. Possibly due to the expression created by the artist, the mouth doesn't stand out. Or maybe the creature simply doesn't have one. Tom can't tell. The hair is long, very long, slightly messy and cascades to the floor, forming a kind of cape. The body is elongated with feminine muscles, yet well-defined and sexualized. She's practically naked, with only a few fabrics barely covering the most revealing parts. The lizard woman has a tail coiled at the base of the statue, extending to the ground. The pose of the sculpture resembles the famous statue of the Roman Emperor Augustus, with one arm stretched forward while the other holds, with the forearm, the folds of the fabric she wears. Near the outstretched hand, which has enormous claws, there is a strange bird perched, like a falconer's hawk, but mixed with a crow. Tom contemplates the sculpture for a long time. It is strangely familiar, comforting, sexy, and frightening. Kar's spirit is imposing, but it exudes a divine respect, whereas this one before him could be called profane in contrast. Drawn in, he takes the first step. A pale blue light emerges from behind the statue. Its shape is similar to what the sculpture represents, but ethereal and lacking details. Tom can distinguish its curves, of course, but also the hair and the tail, nothing more. The figure, half transparent, approaches. Tom, without thinking twice, prepares for combat. After all, Shantanins take many forms. Nothing here says he isn't in danger, if you disregard the welcome written at the entrance. Noticing the boy's concern, the luminous form raises her clawed hands in a typical gesture of someone who doesn't want trouble. Then the image begins to vibrate softly. She addresses Tomás. "Please, I ask that you calm down. I'm not here for conflict." Her voice sounds distant, even though she is only a few meters away. "All right," he replies suspiciously. "And who are you? Why did you bring me here?" "I am Shad, one of the deities of Emnia." She bows slightly yet pompously. "I've seen deities before, and you don't look anything like one. Maybe she's just a representative like Kar's spirit, so why not present herself that way? The place where I am, relative to your plane of existence, is tremendously distant. My influence here is minimal." She looks at her own transparent body. "This ethereal form is how I can manifest at this moment." The boy doesn't quite buy the answer. If deities are divine, shouldn't distance be no obstacle? But he decides she doesn't pose an immediate threat, so he can listen to what she has to say. "And you didn't come here just to say hi. What do you want?" He can't tell why, but his responses come out sharper than intended. "Your wit is sharp. It's true I didn't come without reason. My presence here is a plea." She approaches diagonally. "I came to ask for your help, and to help you." She seems to smile, but it's hard to tell. "I'm looking for the one you call the mage." She points to Tom's head. The stranger may or may not be a deity. Tomás doesn't know enough to make that distinction. And right now it doesn't really matter, because it's obvious she knows what's going on with him. Not just the mage's existence, but also how he refers to him. "And why would I help you? I don't even know you. I've got no reason to do anything." He crosses his arms and stares at her more intensely. Shad seems to tremble, but it might just be the flicker of her manifestation. "How obstinate." She clasps her hands over her chest. It was rude of me to ask for something right after we met. For that reason, as proof of my worth and trust, I will tell you a little about the things your companion doesn't share. She steps closer with her hands extended as if offering a gift to the boy. After that, I only ask that you listen to what I have to say. Can we do that? Listening's no problem, of course. Maybe what she says isn't even true, but even so, I can learn a bit more about things. About what I'll probably have to deal with in the future. No problem, I'm listening. Shad spins in celebration and resumes speaking. The one you call the mage is actually Marifa Mile, the greatest ritualist of Emnia. She sounds proud, raising one arm as she speaks. My most talented protégé. There has never been anyone as skilled and versed in manipulating divine grace. So that's the mage's name? Makes sense why he didn't want to identify himself. Emnia isn't that far from my plane, quite the opposite. How can I believe you? If you were really a deity of Emnia, I don't think you'd have trouble manifesting here. Tomás remembers the mage confirming that the planet where he recovered the translation glasses is his place of origin. And since it's nearby, he can go there with just a nap. Not that the boy understands the magical math involved, but he knows this goes against what Shad said. Incredible, she says enthusiastically. Yes, Emnia is not a plane far from Earth, but I am not there. Soon you will understand. Tom decides to let her continue. I know you're already aware of the concepts of internal and external grace. Not really. He tries to think if he's ever heard that expression. Zara's children call it a mandala. The boy doesn't notice her disdainful tone when referring to Zara. Yes, I know the concept. In Emnia, there were other deities besides me, and my children were extremely marginalized, persecuted, executed. She speaks dramatically, as if narrating a play. The others believed the only pure form of grace was that provided by the surrounding nature, and they victimized those who used internal grace. But what would lead someone to use a mandala if it carries that stigma? Do minorities stop believing in their gods, even when persecuted? No. At such times, faith becomes even stronger. She pauses for a few seconds as she steps a bit closer. My grace flourishes within my children, and my rituals can't be performed otherwise. Unfortunately, the source cannot control where the river flows. Yes, like all the others. Shad sounds sad. Her head tilts slightly downward. So, Marifa was persecuted? In his conversations, the mage never gave the impression of being someone who seeks conflict. Maybe he really is a fleeing mage. I don't know. It's hard to imagine that happening when I remember the cabin where he was born. That place seemed so peaceful and calm, very different from this brutality you're describing. My gift only manifests after maturity, and Emnia's culture is very different from Zara's. It's more like your planet. Magic isn't treated as something trivial. It has purpose. Tom can relate what she says to the place where he got the translation glasses. That place is hostile and surrounded by death. Such a violent culture could indeed predominate there. Fortunately, Mile was incredible. And to live peacefully, he isolated himself in space in his golden palace. I imagine you've seen it. Only from the outside, he replies curtly. How did she know all this? A shame. It's truly beautiful. She looks at her own statue before turning back to the boy. Unfortunately, his thirst for knowledge was never quenched. With much effort, he managed to visit other planes using puppets, like a child playing pretend. So he was already using golems, long before reincarnating. You've seen these golems, haven't you? She emphasizes the word golem dramatically, but in a way Tom can't take seriously. Yes, it's worrying how much she knows about what he's been doing. Since you know about Zara, I figured you had. She steps even closer to the boy. But there came a time when traveling like that wasn't enough. Mile needed to be born in other worlds, to receive the blessings like those he observed. Her tail coils around her body, her hands join again at her chest. That's when he performed the perfect ritual, the most beautiful magic I've ever seen. It gives me chills just remembering. The way she speaks becomes more excited, strange, obsessive. Tom feels growing discomfort. Mile did the impossible. He managed to send his consciousness into another body, one still devoid of grace. Yes, he managed to reincarnate. Tom knows that very well. That's it. She opens a wide smile as she points at the boy. He can notice a huge mouth even in her shapeless, pale form. I'm glad you understand. Her tail uncoils and approaches Tom. I need your help. Your pleas reached me. I know you don't want him sharing your mind. All I want is to bring Mile back to me. Tom really doesn't want to share his mind with the mage, but her knowing this makes her even less trustworthy. There's no way I can help you. Anything you tell me, he'll immediately find out. And if the mage really wants it, I can't do anything. Nothing said in this temple will be shared with Ma'arifa. Your memories of the union will appear to him as everyday, banal things. She would touch his face if she were really there. Here, Tom, you can be just yourself. And that's what I want. I need your help to bring him back to me. In your youthful glory, can you sympathize with a wounded deity? Tomás doesn't quite know what to think. If she really is a deity, it should be easy for her to do this. The mage had already said that deities can do things others can't, so she shouldn't need his help. Seeing the boy's doubtful expression, Shad speaks again. Go home, think about my request. We'll meet again later, and, so you'll feel my intentions are pure, I'll grant you my blessing. Now very close, the bluish form extends her hand to Tom, who begins to be bathed in the same pale light. Gradually, both Shad and the boy's glow fade, leaving him alone in the temple facing the great statue. A little devil deep in his mind tells him he can't trust Shad. But if what she said is true, then he's learned some interesting things about his parasite. Perhaps it's because of this immense desire to learn that Ka looks favourably upon him. Without answers and full of doubts, he starts climbing the stairs toward the street. The first thing he decides is that he needs to talk to the mage, understand his goals better. Also, to know how this whole issue of them being the same person really works, because from his point of view, it's very far from reality. He also needs to probe him about what happened today. Will the mage really not remember this conversation? Tom passes through the alley once more, and upon reaching the street, everything returns to normal. He looks back just to be sure, and there's nothing, just houses and their yards. There must be a way not to be dragged into these strange realities, if he can figure it out. Maybe he won't even need to face the Shantanin. Before returning home, he decides to pass by the nearby park to perform the book enchantments calmly and without curious eyes. He hasn't realised yet, but his conversation with Shad lasted for hours, and soon it will be night. Like a professional, Tom executes the enchantment as Temulo had taught him. This time, manipulating his Amandla happens easily, without any discomfort, just a pleasurable sensation. Maybe that's Shad's blessing taking effect. After all, her rituals use internal grace exclusively. With the books and the enchantment to stop the Shantanin magically imprinted in the notebooks, the boy returns home, unharmed. Tomás arrives home along with his parents. While the boy gives attention to Yoda on the lawn, the family car parks in the garage. Both parents get out smiling brightly, clearly showing they had a great Sunday. Arthur grabs a package from the back seat and gives it to his son before going inside. A souvenir from their trip. Of course, Tom likes being remembered, but he'd rather have gone along too. Inside the package is a box of homemade chocolates shaped like various RPG items, 20-sided dice, swords, shields and miniatures. The boy isn't a fan, doesn't even play RPG, but his dad probably thought he liked things like that. Either way, it was a kind gesture the boy appreciates, especially since he's starving. It's already nighttime and he hasn't eaten anything since breakfast with April. After getting scolded by his mom for eating sweets before dinner, Tom heads to his room to study the Zara language. Excited, he places the notebooks on his desk and grabs the translator. Just like with the manga, the alien text in the notebook starts moving until it forms words he can understand. The beginning is just a narrative, explaining how the deities, especially Ka, gave people the ability to speak and write, how the Zara language is a divine gift. The text seems straight out of the Bible or something like that. But after that introduction, it starts becoming more didactic, not like a traditional grammar, but in a way that slowly introduces concepts and structures of Zara's language. Tom is really surprised by the translator's effectiveness. When he needs to see the text in its original form to learn how Zara's alphabet is written, the device understands and shows him as needed. 2 or 3 hours pass with Tom poring over the book, trying to learn this new language. It's very hard, but he feels real progress, probably Ka's blessing taking effect, as it must serve that purpose. Or maybe it's his latent knowledge of the language. At the end of this first study session, the boy can identify the alphabet, the separation of words, and other structures. He can read very simple sentences and things like that. He's still far from managing without the glasses. More study will be necessary if he wants to keep visiting Zara. Around 9 o'clock, the boy finally emerges from his room and goes to the kitchen to grab something to eat. Without fuss, he heats up a plate of leftovers and eats casually while watching some nonsense on TV. After studying, Tom always tries to do something silly to disconnect his mind from the world. Satisfied, he returns to his room. He keeps watching some old movie he had left halfway through days ago, waiting for sleep to come, which happens right after the movie ends. He sleeps. Tomás is once again in the house made of white stone. The mage's mother, Sir Nui, remains seated in her armchair full of cushions, watching the landscape outside and reading her book. Her face is beautiful and shines when illuminated by the pale light streaming in through the windows. The mage, still with Tom's appearance, stands by his mother, also looking outside. Upon seeing the real Tom sitting at the table, he approaches and joins him. Congratulations on the success of the book enchantment and everything else. You're progressing well. Ah, thanks. It's harder than in the movies. That's his only frame of reference, even if it's fiction. True, but that's the fault of the world you were born into. But this world without magic will give you more freedom to do what you want. He smiles at the boy. One thing you don't have are chains binding you to what the deities command. So, if I'm from Zara and my blessing is from Ka, I can only do magic the way Ka does. Pretty much. But how does someone get blessed by a deity? It doesn't seem consistent from what he'd already noticed. It's like what happens here on Earth. If you're born into a Catholic family, you end up being baptized. Over there, it's not much different. But it varies from plane to plane. There are places where you have to go to a temple and be accepted. I can't tell you all the ways because there are so many. The mage points his finger at Tom like a gun and continues. Imagine a way. And probably there's a place where it works like that. So, if it's more of a cultural thing like religion here on Earth, there's nothing stopping someone from doing it differently, right? In theory, yes, but in reality, no. The ones who allow enchantments to be performed are the deities, and if you're under the shadow of one, you have to follow their rules. So, since I'm not under anyone's shadow, I don't have any rules to follow, is that it? Yes, and that's amazing, but no. He smiles happily. What do you mean, no? Can't he just give a direct answer for once? You and I are the same person, so your body already carries several graces, so even now being free, there may be some interference. He pauses a bit to think. So far I've never gone through that, so I think not. You mean that a deity, being as divine as they are, can't impose restrictions on me? Not even your original deity? Tom throws out the first bait to see if the mage will talk about Shad. In theory, yes. A deity could impose restrictions, but they don't. At least they never have, as I've already said. I don't know if it's an inability or just a lack of interest. A thin stone cup appears in front of him and he starts drinking. But how does that work? If I'm you and I share your graces, shouldn't I remember your past and things like that? He can't dodge the question. Tom needs a clear answer to know what he'll do in the future regarding what Shad proposed. We're already the same person. You're already me, and vice versa. But I've lived many lives. Even in my original body, I managed to last much longer than usual. So my head is full. Your body couldn't handle that much information. Tom remembers the mage mentioning something about this during their last conversation, how terrible it was to have all his memories in a baby's body. So what's going to happen is that the instinctive things will start surfacing naturally. Do you think you're good at magic just by chance? He smiles proudly. You are because I am. Ha 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 ha. I can't even take credit for my own effort. He complains, annoyed. Of course you can. It's not easy either way. As time goes by, you'll get better and better because our body will start remembering and adapting. And the memories? That's what matters most. After all, Thomas believes that he is only himself because of what he remembers and how that shapes him. As for memories, that's more complicated. I didn't want to deprive myself of a normal childhood in this world, so when I deem it necessary, you'll start to remember some things until, in the end, there will be nothing separating who you are from me, so to speak. But how do you live when we're not talking here? How do you know about the things I do, and when I'm unconscious, you take control of my body, right? I don't live separately. When you're awake, I am you. Me here talking to you is nothing more than our overall consciousness, a complete version of myself frozen in time. But is it possible for that not to happen? For me to be me and for you to be you? Separate without my current self being erased by the flood of memories you intend to pour into my head? If there's any way to do what Shad suggested, the mage surely knows. I don't know where you got that from, but it should be technically possible. Just as your consciousness can go into a golem, it should also be possible to block my influence on your mind, or even transfer it to another body. But if I hadn't come to this world, you wouldn't even be born. Tom notices the mage feels a bit uncomfortable. He can't quite figure out why. So it is possible to separate our consciousnesses? Marifa grows serious. Yes, but I don't know the risks of doing something like that. The ritual was performed so that my consciousness would jump to another body only when the previous one died. So, who knows what could happen with what gets left behind? And that wouldn't make you stop being me, because we are the same person. It would just deprive you of all the knowledge I've accumulated. I don't know. It's still very strange. I can't really believe the things you're telling me. Even so, he believes that the mage Marifa has been sincere. True. You're absolutely right. But one thing you need to understand, I'm giving you a unique opportunity here to learn things that no one on this planet even knows exist, to travel through the cosmos and all that. Tom, you just need to accept that eventually you'll have memories that aren't yours at first, but later they will be. Once you remember everything, there will be no more reason for our conversations. And what's your true goal? Why are you doing this? Oh, that's not hard to imagine. I don't want to die without seeing everything there is to see, without knowing different cultures and unique enchantments. He speaks, gesturing animatedly, like an Italian talking about football. Maybe at first it was that, but not now. I'm sure you're still hiding something. Well, yes, I guess there's no reason to keep you in the dark about that. I'm running from a deity. I ended up in this plane because it's where their influence is as weak as possible. He looks away in shame. Eventually I'll be found. And when that happens, we need to be ready to face her. Tom gets irritated with the answer. Not only does he take over his body, but he also drags him into conflicts with deities. Before the boy can retort or say anything, the mage starts saying goodbye. Looks like it's time for you to wake up in Zara. Try to enjoy it. A white light blinds his vision. When he can see again, he's already sitting on the couch that was placed there recently, in Zara, with Car's statue in front of him.